I see everybody's returning again. We were just in the middle of a sentence where somebody said, when scaling, make sure you don't. And then we were broken up. So yeah, I would be very curious to still have that sentence finalized. But maybe we can do that in a plenary session when we return again. To gather everybody's thoughts and discussions from personal experience, it was a very short breakout. I would have loved the opportunity to have another 20-30 minutes to get into everything. But unfortunately, so far, yeah, we don't have that time. I would love to see what everybody was sharing in the groups that we weren't part of, and of course our group to share as well with others what they were sharing. So we are going to turn again to Mentimeter because that it gives us the opportunity to hear from all the different voices rather than only a few. So let me allow myself to share the screen again, where you will be taken to another Mentimeter option. I'm just opening everything so I can see your faces as well here, where if you go back to your mobile phone and menti.com, you don't have to use a new code. You can just open the app and there you see the question. Please share your most surprising takeaway from the discussion in your breakout group. And realizing it was only 25 minutes and perhaps you didn't have the opportunity to dive in details, it would be great to just share from your own experience something that you were really surprised about in some of the research that you've been involved in when talking about scaling and dealing with these dilemmas that we've been sharing. So we already got a quick technical responder here who says it's difficult to create win-win situations for different kind of partners or farmers. That would be an interesting one indeed, how to make sure that everybody benefits and we have an inclusive approach. And answers are coming in, which is great. Glad the technology is working here. So we see more answers coming in. The lack of discussion around engaging local people and their preferences, as well as the lack of consideration to relations of power, which was also indeed emphasized very much in the initial discussion during the presentation this morning by Melissa Leach. Innovation happens in phases, how to be conscious and strategic about choices in these different phases. That fits very well with the dilemma that we actually were discussing together with Ellen and our team just now in a breakout about short-term gains, long-term ambitions and sustainable solutions, how to balance that act. Somebody saying private sector response as something that was a surprising takeaway. I know we didn't warn you that you might be picked out to share, but perhaps the one who answered private sector response is willing to share with us a little bit more about what that means. If you are willing to share, please unmute yourself and take the audio. In the meantime, we can have a look at some other comments coming in. Scaling is a process. Again, private sector comes up. And the local people, capacity and power associated to it should be taken into account and is underappreciated. We can make a short, small pre-announcement here in this group, I think, that we will have a very interesting podcast episode coming out soon, which will go live tomorrow, dealing with exactly this from the different research projects related to how local knowledge and scientific knowledge can be a balancing act and what should take central stage or what not. Private sector is not an enemy, but a partner with its own goals. It is hard to show benefits for the private sector throughout research and innovation and scaling process to get them and to keep them involved. This is something I think that the program members will definitely support as well, that it's a challenge sometimes to keep everybody's interests into the balancing act. Let me turn to the two facilitators, the three facilitators, Rob, Ellen and Jana. Maybe Rob, Jana, because I wasn't part of your group, would you be willing to share one of the surprising takeaways from your side in your breakout session?
Shall I, or Rob, you first, or I shall say?
Yeah, Jana, please.
So no, we had very rich discussion, but there was this one thing that really stuck to my mind, and it was saying that there are so many differences, but actually, if you really listen to each other and know each other, and then in the end, these differences can lead to the best consensus or solutions. I like that very much.
Yeah, and it reflects a little bit again to the one big word in a word cloud that we had in the beginning, communication taking central stage, which was shared by a lot of people. So it seems that that really is something that came up. And Ellen, I believe in our breakout group, also talking with partners and engaging them and seeking perhaps different capacities partners was also emphasized, was it not? You are unmuted though.
Sorry, it's my turn?
Yeah, sure. Well, Ellen, unmute yourself. Rob, please.
Okay. Yeah, so in our group, we had an interesting discussion also about the kind of different phase between generating knowledge or creating innovation and the scaling aspect to it, and the difficulty of having the private industry involved. And Kati Minderhout shared a policy brief on including private industry in such projects. And Robert Baars, for example, gave an example of targeting specific private industry that may be most suitable in taking up the innovation. So showing the heterogeneity among private industry and taking that into account when scaling.
Yeah, wonderful. I see that the private industry is taking a lot of interest here. And it's coming up in all these different areas. That's the as well in the earlier discussion of the conference, where the private sector, because of the Food and Business Research Program, of course, takes some emphasis. Is there anybody who would like to share or elaborate a little bit on what you shared just now in Mentimeter? You can either raise your hand, give a thumbs up, so that we can allow you to unmute yourself. Yes, Maria, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, well, I wanted to respond to all the comments about the private sector and the private sector being a partner. And indeed, that was very much sort of the starting point of the program. But we really need to differentiate this private sector. As Melissa also said, you know, there's a big difference between large agribusiness, and even there you have this distinction between companies that do want to change their businesses and make them more sustainable, but there are also quite some businesses with quite powerful lobby, supported by powerful lobby organizations that do focus mainly on their own interests, which are not always aligned with the interests of the local producers. So we have to be very careful when we talk about, you know, the private sector as a partner. You know, which kind of private sector are we talking about, and what do we expect from them, and can we expect that from them, or do we need to look for other partners whose interests can be more easily aligned with those of local producers?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Who is the private sector? And I think one of the synthesis articles that was published as part of the Food and Business Research Program also posed that same question in relation to smallholders. If we're talking about farmers, who is it that we're talking about? The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has quite a different interpretation sometimes than do some of the policymakers in country or even the researchers involved in these projects. Are we talking about SMEs, family businesses, growth-oriented entrepreneurs? There's so many differences in these type of stakeholders that we're throwing in one group. So thanks for that contribution. I think that takes us well to maybe the last question of the session today, which hopefully takes us a step forward, because I want to pose a question to you all, again in Mentimeter, which addresses the question, for your organization, so try to step out of your own individual work sphere, but for you working within a particular type of organization, what is or might still be needed to address these many challenges in scaling? What do you as an organization need? Can be different things, right? We encourage you to think in very concrete next steps, like Is it more conversations and dialogue with certain stakeholders, as we mentioned, communication, but what specifically? Is it more research, but what is needed for that? So what kind of questions are you struggling with still that can be brought up that we can build on as well for our synthesis study to integrate it maybe in our articles to come? More time, yes, more time for this workshop in itself, or more time to scale as an organization? I believe both, if I may be so frank. Time, long-term programs. I see a lot of emphasis on the time phrase, and I think that's very relevant to the dilemma that actually we pose as well, right? Short-term gains, long-term gains, how to balance that, and how to make sure that you actually have the opportunity to take on those long-term gains. Changing of experiences, partnerships. I presume exchanging of experiences with different types of stakeholders, perhaps, such as the multi-stakeholder groups that the NWO-WOTRO was putting together in part of the food and research program. I thought it was a very nice slang being introduced, but I think it means project, no proj to proj jumping. So no project to project jumping. But I presume that's linked with making sure that we have long-term programs that can build on the results from its interventions. Is there anybody that would like to share a little bit more, elaborate on what they suggested here or proposed here? Again, you can raise your hand if you have your video on, or in the participants list, you can raise your hand. Looking at my technical support team to have a look there as well, if there's anybody raising their hand, because too many screens open at the moment.
All right, I can say something.
Sure.
Because I'm having trouble with the Mentimeter, but I was just thinking about what was mentioned in our group, which was, you know, daring maybe to work and to engage different partners, unexpected partners that you didn't think about before to work with. So I think generally thinking out of the box and you know, revising your original plan. Someone said the original plan, you know, emerged from a paper reality, but so dare to go back to your original plan and adjust as you see reality is different.
Yeah, correct. I think the theory and practice discussion, right? What we want to achieve in scaling versus what the reality on the ground actually, presents us might be very different and challenging in getting scaling there. So hopefully the suggestions put forward here in relation to getting more time, having a focus and a clear ambition, perhaps even translated into a theory of change was something that was offered here in our breakout session. Making sure that there's a clarity of goals and ambitions and all the partners involved actually share that ambition might be something that really is beneficial to the project. And one of the experience that we've seen in the food and business research program is the emphasis on impact pathways and the development of theories of change within the multi-stakeholder and interdisciplinary teams, actually benefiting indeed having that shared vision and revisiting research questions along the way.
Exactly, and trying out different, sorry, Robert.
I see a hand raised. Robert, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, I see on the screen in the Mentimeter long-term projects or long-term collaborations, and I also mentioned this in our breakout session. I think this is conditional if you really want to make a change in scaling or efforts in scaling. At the same time, you can jump from project to project as long as they are positioned in that same program. So projects are never longer than 4 years, very often 3 years or shorter. So it is good to work from one project already when you are approaching the end, already try to think about the follow-up project. But then you need again your partners because, well, depending from which institute you are, but in my case, University of Applied Sciences, I cannot go into development work. This is not my mandate. I have to focus on education and research. So we need these partners in these long-term programs to, let's say, perform other activities than we as an institute are doing.
Yeah, very interesting, Robert. Thank you. Finding those complementary capacities to actually, take it to the next level or contribute in a different way that you, because of the mandate that you're given, are not able to actually take on yourself very fairly. So I think that we have one more option for a reply from Nicole, and then we have to unfortunately already break up our workshop. So please, Nicole, if you can briefly share your insight.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. My name is Nicole Metz. I will work with the Netherlands Food Partnership from January onwards, and I'm now based in the Food and Business Knowledge Platform in AgriProFocus. I thank you all for the comments on what is needed to address the challenges in scaling. I think there are many opportunities also for collaborative action facilitated by different Netherlands-based agencies who have international partners on their turn. I think what's needed to make that a success is and to make the available funds for that a success is also really an openness from different partners to work together. And I think there are different universities involved in this session here with different knowledge programs, different research programs. I think really the openness to work with others is important, and also to then every institution, including universities, should really also have the attitude of this long-term change agenda and try to work towards that together with partners from private sector, from civil society, from policy. It's not easy, but sometimes still actors stay within their own domain because of all those reasons that they need to stay in their own domain. It's not always easy also to facilitate that collaboration. So I would call for also really an effort from all sides to work towards that collaboration. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. We need what is it? A village to take care of a child, or a child? Yeah, there is a saying which I don't know. I tried to return to the fables and tales, and unfortunately I failed. But I hope you get the gist. Looking at the time, I think it's time for us to round up the discussion here. There are some interesting comments made also in the chat with references to some websites with tools on scaling, so have a look there. And Monica shared how to move on to the next session. Before you do so, I would like to do one shout out for those who have not put on their video at the moment to, for 2 seconds, turn it on so that we can make a screenshot of the session here that we can use for the reporting afterwards, which would be lovely. Omar is turning on his video. Thank you so much. Hi, Jessica. So I think if ready, there we go. I would just say 3, 2, 1, scaling. How about you? So 3, 2, 1, scaling. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you so much all for a wonderful discussion. We could have taken this much further, but unfortunately time is up. Have a wonderful conference. Enjoy yourselves and see you in the next sessions. Bye, everyone.